to connect present and future generations of Jewish Dallas. In 1971, two friends watched as a piece of their history was reduced to rubble. As Ginger Chesnick Jacobs and Ruth Brown Can watched the demolition of Temple Emmanuel's early South Dallas building, the third of the congregation's history, they became acutely aware of the importance of saving local Jewish history. Though it was too late for that building, it was not too late for the history of the community. They began the Dallas Jewish Archives, a committee of the Jewish Community Center, which evolved a decade later into the Dallas Jewish Historical Society, which became an independent 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education on and preservation of Dallas Jewish history. The agency is the only one that collects and preserves and records the history of the entire greater Dallas Jewish community and related emigre stories. Within the walls of our climate-controlled archival vault are a plethora of documents, photographs, and audiovisual materials and objects from Jewish-owned businesses, organizations, congregations, families, and individuals dating 1860 through present day. Quite literally, we recorded one of our oral histories just the other day, and we have closer to 1,100, if not like 1,150, in the archive right now. Our treasure trove is regularly utilized by the DJHS, volunteers and staff, researchers, and the public to learn about and reimagine Dallas Jewish history. Its preservation and care are at the center of our work. The concept of the door, or generation to generation, is also deeply ingrained in our roots as an agency. Exemplified through in-depth interviews and personal genealogical support, we help families trace their roots, capture their stories, and ensure their legacies endure. Preserving Jewish history isn't just about remembering the past, it's about shaping the future where every experience, every generation, and every story matters. We are a small agency that relies heavily on our volunteers, interns, and lay leadership to assist in capturing, preserving, and interpreting stories that we hold dear. Many of our volunteers have relatives whose stories and artifacts are housed within our archive as well. We're going to dive into our military holdings. Dallas Jewish history both flanks and encompasses the Holocaust. The atrocities of World War II impacted and reshaped Jewish Dallas, though it is but a small percentage of the rich tapestry this community has woven. With our extensive collecting scope that spans 165 years, it is understandable that our holdings include content from each of the major U.S.-involved wars, as well as military schools and veterans organizations. Here we have Isaac Dahlman, who immigrated in the 1850s, was naturalized in 1857. He joined the Union Army in the Civil War before being honorably discharged in 1866. He became one of Texas's most influential Jewish pioneers. Ernst Kahn, pictured in the series of circular portraits, attended Western Military Academy in Alton, Illinois. It was active for nearly a century, from 1879 to 1971. He spent 3 years at the academy. During the third year, he suffered back-to-back cerebral hemorrhages, which ended his life in 1899 at the age of 15. E.M. Can and Lily Can, his parents and proprietors of the famed E.M. Can department store, founded in Dallas in 1872, traveled to Illinois immediately to collect his remains. I.L. Sanger, the nephew of Alex, Philip, and the son of Lehman Sanger of Sanger Brothers department store fame, attended Augusta Military School in Virginia in the late 1880s before returning to Texas. He became a successful businessman here in Dallas, noted for his economic acumen. He even invented a game called Parity based on international economies and trading. Isaac, Philip, and Lehman Sanger also fought for the Confederacy during the Civil War. Moving into World War I, we have Harry Stickler, whose relative donated this photo of him in his World War I fatigues. You can see how young he looks in that photograph. The Rubin family has longstanding ties to Dallas. Their relative Sam served in Hawaii during World War I. E.M. Can's department store sponsored a preparedness parade in downtown Dallas in 1916 to encourage support for World War I and boost regional morale. The extended Margulies Trugman family lived in Dallas since the turn of the 20th century. They have a relative who served as a nurse in World War I. There she is in front of a dugout. Charles Levine served in both World Wars and ultimately served in the U.S. Air Force until the late 1950s. Here is his enlistment record and a certificate of furlough, both from 1919. E.M. Can's youngest son, Lawrence, also served He was in Europe during World War I. There he is with 3 members of his company. The term doughboys was used to describe and identify U.S. infantrymen during and following World War I, with first notes of the term recorded in the late 1840s. The exact origin of the term is unclear, but one theory is it related to the relative youth of World War I soldiers, with a majority aged 17 to 25. Samuel Blumenthal was a native Dallasite who served in World War I. We have his dog tags, some correspondence, and scrapbook pages his sister compiled of photographs taken by and of him during that time. Love Field opened in 1917 as a training base for the U.S. Army Air Service in World War I. Pictured here is Sam Blumenthal at Love Field in 1919. Moving into World War II. Our World War II collection is mainly correspondence among servicemen and their families, or wives and girlfriends. Though we do have some ephemera, such as dog tags, uniforms, insignia, patches, awards, certificates, and documentation. The 65th Infantry, which E. Kistner was a member of, was created specifically to infiltrate the European theater and was disbanded shortly following the end of the war in that region. Stanley Bernard Angrist was a local boy, a native Dallasite who perished in the line of duty on August 6, 1944, outside of Paris. We have a photograph of his brother and his sister-in-law visiting his grave in the 90s. Natalie Lewis was so inspired by the war effort that she immediately enlisted as a wave in the U.S. Navy and served on bases during the whole of the war. Alice Teich, cousin of the famed Edward Teich of Teich Gettinger Department Store, lived in Memphis, but met Dallas girl May Levy while visiting the city. Their courtship and correspondence started right before Ellis enlisted and began training, and that correspondence continued almost daily for the whole of the war and the transition after, spanning about August 1943 through fall of 1945, early 1946. And Ruth Karsevar-Lack served as a nurse in Germany during World War II. We currently have her nurse's cap on display. Continuing with World War II, our collection holds some surprises now and then. For instance, learning that Nathan Goidel, whose family owned a neckwear manufacturing company here in Dallas, worked as part of the Chemical Warfare Service during World War II. An extensive correspondence collection is present on this letterhead, though none of it directly discusses anything he was doing with Chemical Warfare Service. We also have ration tokens, books, posters, and other memorabilia related to the war effort and experiences of the average U.S. citizen during that period. Some tokens that relate to discharged servicemen, such as the U.S. Naval Reserve Honorable Discharge Pins and Ruptured Duck Honorable Discharge Pins. Those pins were really vital as servicemen began re-entering society after they were discharged, because of how materials were routed to support the war effort, and because a lot of the service members didn't have a lot of money when they were returning, they didn't necessarily have access to civilian clothing. And so these pins allowed them to legally wear their uniforms while they sought work and would later wear different clothes. Joseph Schwait served in the Pacific Theater during the war. He is the only service member that we are aware of in our collection at this time who have served in that theater. Irving Granoff and his family were living in Dallas at the time of his service, and he returned here when he finished. Leroy G. Lewin's daughter has been a longtime supporter of DJHS. She recently donated this photo of her father wearing his jacket, and the jacket she donated about 10 years prior. Stanley Kaufman, also a native Dallasite, served in World War II and returned to Dallas, later becoming a lawyer. He had some connection to Jack Ruby and was deposed by the Warren Commission related to the JFK assassination. Sylvan Karchmer served in Italy and the North African Theater during the war. We have an extensive correspondence collection between him and his family during the war as well. He is the only one of 2 servicemen in our collection to serve in that theater. The other is Robert Susi, who didn't serve with the U.S., but was a French national living in Egypt who served for the Allied forces. Hyman Trugman wedded his bride while at home on leave. The Sylvia Margulies Trugman collection is one of the most extensive and deeply described collections we have on early Jewish Dallas. Sidney Walter was the father of Shari Nevelo, who lives here in Dallas. Her husband, Ira, is also a veteran and is connected to Jewish War Veterans Post 256. And it's because of that connection with the JWV that we came into possession of Sidney Walter's scrapbooks. They sat in our backlog for a little while, as collections often do in archives. And in preparing for this presentation, we found photographs in the same set as the two that are here that are liberator photos of the Camp Dachau. And he was part of Patton's Fifth Army. And these photographs came from the same camera as photographs of atrocities that had to have been taken before Sidney arrived there. So we have reason to believe that he came in possession of a German camera that he later went and had documented with the Army, and it was returned to him. We're going to partner with the Texas Jewish Historical Society and the Ackerman Center to do additional research, to track his movements, and to learn more about why he was at Dachau when he was. But there are photographs in that collection that have not been seen from angles and different views of some harrowing things, but we're hoping to be able to add to the narrative and share that history soon. Moving into Korea, Vietnam era, and later, there were Jewish service members who continued to serve following World War II. While most of our collection boasts content from that era and World War I, we do have holdings related to later wars. Notably, this image of holy services for Jewish servicemen in Korea in 1961, and Jared Grodin's collection, which includes identification, correspondence, and photographs from his service in the 1990s and 2000s. Shirley Fleshen Greenwald grew up in Dallas, studied to be a nurse, and earned the position of first lieutenant in the U.S. Army Nurse Corps in 1962. She served for over 10 years and was well respected. Though she never saw combat, she did serve overseas for a time. Jewish War Veterans Post 256, as I mentioned, and their Ladies Auxiliary support Jewish war veterans of every era, though locally there are no remaining World War II vets and only a handful remain nationally. There are over 200 members in the local post and 9,000 members of various posts nationally. There are around 10,000 active duty service members today who are Jewish. The national branch of the post was founded in 1896. We also have content related to survivors and the liberation, in addition to the Walter photographs I mentioned. We have oral histories from Jack Rupp and Mike Jacobs. Mike Jacobs was the husband of our co-founder, Ginger Jacobs, as well as a co-founder in his own right for the Dallas Holocaust Memorial Center, which is now the Dallas Holocaust and Human Rights Museum. Maggie First and Bert Romberg were two siblings who were on kinder transport. We have their oral histories. Max Globin, a really famous survivor, was very active in the community and attended some things that DJHS did and was a speaker in his own right. His family is very involved with our agency. Margaret Hopkowitz, we have her oral history. She fled to Italy and lived there with her husband for many years before coming to Dallas. Here are additional regional resources and repositories that can help tell the story of Jewish service members. And thank you. Let me know if there are any questions.